paraphrase Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that's the most adaptable to change. And our industry is undergoing an immense period of change, both in complexity and in size. How big is the market opportunity exactly for the people in this room? What do you guys think? Have some numbers? Well, close. According to Satya Nadella, it's $4.5 trillion. $4.5 trillion. Seems daunting. But what is this demand for exactly? What are customers so hungry for? What are they spending so much money on? Well, I'll tell you, they're not in the market for tech. Nobody's come up to me recently and said, hey, Tony, can I buy some clouds? Clouds sound cool. I'd like to have some of those. Or would you please come and implement some change? Customers hate change. People hate change. So they're not going to swap out one system for another for the sake of that. So they're in the market for one thing. That is a competitive advantage. But what does competitive advantage look like? I know what you're thinking. Oh, we were just getting really good at selling tech, and now customers are buying other stuff. So what does that look like? Well, according to IDC, by 2021, 75% of applications will be using some form of AI, and 90% of customer interactions will be with bots. I don't know about you, but AI and bots, like these are not things that we do all the time today. We have all these skills ready to go for. We didn't really believe this data. We ran our own survey, came out last week. But yeah, 60% of IT leaders are already spending money and energy on AI and ML. It's in our own survey. These are new skills. How does this make you feel when you read stats like this? Whether it's me up here telling you or you read the trades, it's all thematically the same. How do you feel? Do you feel anxious, concerned? Or do you feel excited because you see opportunity? Well, if you're like me, you probably feel a little bit of both, which is okay, because it's probably what our customers are feeling, and it's causing them to think and act differently. To execute on delivering a competitive advantage to the market, we'll need to build new capabilities, specifically in the areas of sales execution, but also engineering and delivery. With regards to sales execution, we need a completely different approach. And it's based on the challenger mentality. Our customers don't often know what they want. They may know what their problems and challenges are. But even if they think they know what they want, we don't want to be order takers, doing transactional deals. They ask for X, we ship them X, we bill them for it. Customers today, more than ever, must be challenged. We also need a business-oriented approach to the sales motion. It needs to be rooted in TCO, ROI, that measures not just technology outcomes, but business outcomes. And it has to resonate for their industry. And because they're not just going to believe our analysis and our spreadsheets and our presentations and our spec sheets we show them, we can expect in pre-sales to be doing near production grade work. They're going to want proof that what we're telling them is correct. With regards to delivery, we need a whole slew of subspecialized engineers and consultants today. It's not just one type of engineer. It is an analyst, a security expert, maybe a developer, a cloud architect, big data expert, who knows, right? It's a cross-functional team today more than it has ever been. And our customers are going to want to feel like we're about to take them through this immense journey they've never been on before. Like, they want to see our faces. We got to be on site, like move in, get a badge. We used to look at that as sort of a burden, as a cost. Oh man, I wish I could deliver this remotely and not show up. Now when we're invited in and given a badge, we see that as a gift. It's also what our customers require. And they expect beauty in the solution. So many of the surface areas of the work that we do will have some sort of a visual element, whether it's a dashboard, beautiful reports, an app. Unfortunately, the consumer applications have set the standard for what enterprise software needs to look like today. So they expect to see Instagram. And that's the bar that's been set, for better or for worse. And we also need exceptional project management. We used to manage one work stream and a group of, a couple of people. Today we're managing a cross-functional team on our own side, and many of the work streams on our customer side we also have to take responsibility for, because when customer projects are stalling, regardless of whose fault it is, it's our fault, right? We're always going to take the blame. And also, when projects are struggling, they're delayed or there's challenges, it's not often because the technology doesn't work, it's because there's scope creep, there is communication issues. So exceptional project execution is paramount to the new paradigm. But if you achieve all these 4 things in your engagements, you will absolutely gain customers for life. We will not be looked at as a transactional vendor, we'll be looked at as a strategic partner. I know what you're thinking, this is all theoretical, it sounds great in a slide. So I'd like to really give you a customer example of one of our recent examples of an engagement that we sold and delivered. And this is very recent, so this is all very relevant to today. I can't name who the customer is, but they're an application business. They have a SaaS platform, and they wanted to do something different. And when they came to us, what they said was, we want to move from this cloud to that cloud because our customers are pressuring us to diversify. As we started to get to know them, it turned out they were looking at doing this for 2 years, hadn't really moved on the needle. And when we looked at the analysis, we understood why. What they were proposing was essentially the same of what they had yesterday, with a 5 or 6% savings in cost. 5 or 6%, that's not compelling to drive change. Nobody wants to do that. So we challenged them. We said, look, in your journey from one cloud to the other, what if we took this opportunity to re-architect your application, look at the design, introduce some microservices, containerization, and our analysis showed that if we did that, this would result in a 50% cost savings. Now we're talking 50%. I mean, this is the essential cost of goods in their business reduced by 50%. Now, the ancillary benefits on top were much easier maintenance and support. Their DevOps would be easier for their application. They could push out updates much faster than before. It's a real advantage to their business. And also, this particular case was Google Cloud. They could use the platform elements of Google Cloud to build new capabilities in their application that they just couldn't do as easily. Whether it's ML, AI, insights, they could take advantage of the platform offerings. This is a far cry from moving from one cloud to the other for a 5 or 6% savings. This is real, meaningful business transformation. How do we engage to make this happen? Here are the steps that we took. Importantly, if you intend to challenge your customers, essentially it's the art and science of telling them that they're wrong in what they asked for. It's hard to do without first building some relationships. And not just leadership at the tech organization, the CIO, the VP of engineering. That's great and fundamentally important. But if you're going to make a business case, it's also important to build relationships outside of the CIO's office. CEO, CFO, they're going to want to know about that 50% savings, right? And then we challenge the status quo. A 50% savings and a much better application environment for their core product, I mean, that creates a compelling event. Remember, they were stuck for 2 years thinking about making this other move for purely technical reasons that weren't even compelling. But it's hard for the CFO to ignore a 50% savings, and hard for a CEO to ignore a technological competitive advantage against their rivals. And of course, that was not enough. We not only had to demonstrate with spreadsheets and analysis and so on, we actually had to make it work in a production state environment. We had to spin up this server instances, move their product over, show the new architecture, run it for a while. This is all pre-sales, by the way. But you know what happened after that? This produced a $2 million win that was much more strategic than what they wanted to do. They wanted us to take a $50,000 order to do something. A $2 million win, the biggest pre-commit win of its kind in the ecosystem at the time. And we know, because we spent so much time with them, that they have 10x that to spend. And as we execute on the delivery, we have now become strategic to this customer. They think of us as their competitive advantage. And it was uncomfortable to challenge them in the beginning, but let me tell you now, this is a flag that they wave around all the time, as if it was their idea, which is fine. So, look, doing this requires new capabilities. And new capabilities require investment. And I could be candid with you in saying that a year ago, we probably could not have executed that deal. We probably could not have sold it, and we sure as heck probably could not have engineered it. And we have some experience doing this. For the last 10 years, we've been growing roughly 35% a year every year. So in the midst of change, we've gotten really good at adapting and recognizing opportunities and investing the right ways. 35% a year for a decade, that means 10 years ago we were a single-digit million-dollar company with 20 employees. Last year, we finished at close to $100 million in revenue with 180 employees, all organic. So this process works. So now that you're convinced that it's important to invest, and arguably now more important than ever, how do you put this in practical terms? First, before we talk about how, I think it's important to understand the what. Like, what do you invest in? There's no generic answer you're going to read in the press. There's all these things that are hot today, that are important tomorrow, blockchain, all this stuff. What to invest in has to be a very personal decision that's specific for you, in your core capabilities, fits with your culture, with your customers. So the first thing you have to do is listen to your customers. They will tell you, if you listen, if you really listen, what their challenges are, what technologies they're evaluating, what competitors they work with. They will guide you. And they might not tell you exactly what to pitch to them, but they'll tell you what they're scared of. They'll tell you what their strategic priorities are. It's amazing how many of us don't do a great job of that, and something that we didn't do for many years. But listening to our customers, very important. And then we have to listen to our teams. Our teams are the ones that are the closest to our customers, selling to them, delivering for them. And they come to wonderful events like this. You know, our teams are on the ground talking to competitors, to peers, and there's a lot of insight that they gather. But it's important to set up almost a mechanism and also a culture to make sure that this wonderful information from our teams gets distilled up to the leadership, and that we get insight into all the conversations happening. Culturally, it's sort of an open door thing, but also there's processes to implement to make sure after events like this, for us at SADA, we love to get together in a room and we go to a full debrief. And trust me, those lessons learned get implemented into our strategic plans. And thirdly, listen to our partners. Our partners spend tens of millions of dollars trying to figure out what's next, right? They're building new capabilities, they're launching new offerings, they're building data centers, whatever they're doing. Trust me, they do the research, right? And for us in our relationships with Google, Microsoft, and now Facebook, I mean, we sign up for every trusted tester, beta program, red carpet, you name it, right? We sign up for all of it because our partners are never wrong. No, I'm just kidding. They're wrong all the time, which is okay. But any of these sources by themselves can be wrong. The art is really synthesizing all these data points, distilling them, making them personal to us, and that's what gives us insight into what to invest in. And so now, how do you gain new capabilities once you know what to invest in? There's a couple different ways to do that. There's 3 that I've outlined. The first way is to buy those capabilities. M&A, there's a lot of consolidation happening in our market. It seems like a short path to gain some capabilities, and it can be. But unless we're really well versed in M&A and integration, it can be challenging to get this right. Some of us have experience doing that, others don't. It's definitely an option on the table. The second option is the partnership strategy. I'm not talking about the kind of partnerships that we have with Google and Microsoft. I'm talking about partnership that looks like outsourcing. Like, I'll give you an example. Our customers require us to have a really good training and change management capability today because so many of the technologies we implement change the way people work. We could have, for the last 5 years, just partnered with a training company, or we could have decided to acquire those capabilities on our own. Partnership can often be seen as a clear path to gaining a capability, but I'll tell you, that competitive advantage is short-lived because we could never be any better than the company we're outsourcing to. So it works. We still do it in some specific cases, but as far as a long-term competitive advantage, partnership has its limitations. So that leaves us with the build it strategy. My personal favorite, something we've deployed over and over, but how do you actually build capabilities if you wanted to? Well, we've developed something called a micro-investment strategy. We've had to, being self-funded, but there's elements that are applicable across the spectrum. When we decide on a technology or capability to invest in, a practice to launch, the first thing we do is hire that first practice lead. Hire, or sometimes promote from within. But the skill sets of this practice lead are really unique. They have to be deeply knowledgeable, in some cases technical in the craft, but they also have to be business builders. They have to be ones that can drive revenue, help sell, hire people. So it's a unique profile. And once you've identified that person, usually I like to have them report to me or someone else I trust very much. You kind of have to set them loose and set them up for success. You have to give them either a sub P&L to manage or key metrics that look very much like a P&L, and just give them a lot of space to either succeed or to fail, but their achievements should be highly visible to everyone. And the next thing you do is not go sell right away. The first people that need to be sold to are your own sales team. This practice lead's job is to build a business. And if we can't convince our own sellers that we now have the ability to sell and deliver these new capabilities, our customers sure as heck are not going to buy it. And once we do that, we got to find that first customer. And who do you think that should be? Probably an existing customer who knows you, loves you, trusts you. Someone that you've done great work for before in the past, and someone who's going to let you, in full transparency, do something you've never done before. We do this all the time. We have a project going on right now with a customer we took over to G Suite many years ago. Very successful project. And today, they're letting us implement enterprise cloud technology from Google that's not even out yet. And they're paying for it and everything. It's great. So those relationships are key because that's going to be your playground where you're able to incubate and develop these new capabilities. That install base is hyper important. So how do you frame this micro investment strategy. I would say that it's a complete mindset. For us, investment is the strategy. And it's very compelling for us when times are good, we're making money in certain types of things that we do. It's compelling to take money out of the business, buy a bigger house, boats, things like that. So you really have to ask yourself, what kind of business are we building? Are we building a lifestyle business? Or are we building a high growth business? And if you're building a high growth business, reinvestment is key. And that investment has to come from parts of the business that are more established, that are producing profitability today, where you can use the gross profits to invest in incubation businesses. But it's also important to start small. We didn't have a choice being organically funded, but I love the discipline that creates. You hire one headcount at a time and test the market. You don't hire 5 and hope that you're right. Because the investment horizon is really important to nail down. Many small businesses fail at the beginning because they've just underestimated the runway. They didn't realize how long it might take to break even, or even how long to revenue, and they simply fail. Well, incubation of new solutions, building new capabilities, can actually fall to the same end. It's almost impossible to get the investment horizon exactly right. It took us 2 years to gain any revenue in our new voice in the cloud business with Skype, for instance. 3 years to become profitable in our CRM business. And it really took 5 years of investment in Google Cloud technology to really get it going. I like to say that we're usually always right, but sometimes we're early. It's better to be early. And regardless of where the funding is coming from, it's important to treat it like it's your own money. I know many companies who've gotten funding or debt or have done things that to capitalize their businesses in other ways. And they've done things like, well, we're going to hire 6 people and putting in Texas, and it's a market we don't have. Or it's really cool to be international. I'm going to open a London office. Things that would otherwise not pass the micro investment litmus test. So, what happens if we don't execute on the strategy? Well, the market's growing so fast, the tide's going to rise all boats. All boats will rise with the tide, except no, they won't. And we've seen this over our evolution in the cloud. There's companies that we used to compete with a decade ago, we don't compete with today. There's customers that we have today that our competitors don't. There's capabilities we've built that our competitors haven't kept up with. So it's not automatic. The tide does not, in fact, rise all the boats. And as one of my favorite business leaders said once, our industry respects tradition. He said the exact opposite of that. He said, our industry does not respect tradition. It only respects innovation. So remember this. The appetite and the market opportunity, just the demand for the things that we do in this room, our products and services, today and tomorrow, is immense. You can think of it as unlimited. Opportunities are everywhere if we listen. Our customers, our teams, our partners, if we listen, we can identify what really resonates for us that we can take a major advantage of in the market. But evolution and innovation require investment. Micro investment strategy is certainly a path to get there. And the time is now. Windows of opportunity like the one we have in front of us today, they don't stay open forever. The time is now. So, who will be the next group of innovators to go and move this market forward today and tomorrow? Well, if I've done my job today, I hope that it's going to be the people in this room. Thank you.